It means full of snow, a lot of snow, fabulous snow. So people always said that it's my fate to be in Canada. I was born in Beijing, China, grown up in a family that was being persecuted by the Chinese government. And so I think that gives me a lot of different aspects to the Chinese community and also world. So when I was pretty little, like from 12, 13 years, I think I understood the Chinese community has problem. So I gave myself this kind of goal and try my best to change it. My parents were very supportive of my will of a lot of things. That also was my lucky because then I learned many years after many Chinese people, while they were grown up and they received pressures from their parents and to push them to believe in the communist. And I did it. And also my grandfather was a politician and a scholar and economist and poet, but he was a politician during the previous government in China, so-called 中华民国, the Republic of China. And that was a very, very serious thing to the Chinese communists because they treat people who served in the previous government as their very dangerous enemies. And my grandfather, mother, and they went to Taiwan in September of 1939 with the Jiang Jieshi's government. And all my uncles, aunties, they went to Taiwan with my grandparents. And my father was the only one. So my father and my mother were persecuted very harshly and in a very long years. That was my early education. And I was sent to the northeast countryside of China to join with my grandparents with my mom's side. I was there for 3 years in a very cold and poor village. The most thing that I could remember was hungry. We didn't have enough food every day. And so I tried very hard to find food, something can eat. So I was poisoned once, and I almost died there. And I was sent back to Beijing after 3.5 years with my younger sister. I didn't know that was even my worst phase started because when we were in the countryside, people were more innocent and didn't really follow the political struggle so closely. But in Beijing, it's different. And everybody, even small kids, they clearly know who you are and who has more rights and who doesn't. So I was beaten up many times and discriminated in elementary school and middle school and high school. So I hate school very much. I didn't want to go to school anymore. But I finished my high school in 1978. The year it was the so-called Great Cultural Revolutionary was already finished. So my father, he insisted to ask me to go to university. And I fight it with him many times. I said, oh, no, no, I don't want to go. Because I had nightmares in schools. I don't want to go to school anymore. But he said, look, our family is a scholar's family. You have to, because everybody goes to universities and you need to study. You need to learn more. You should have more knowledge. You should know more about the community and you should know about your life. And I said, I can do whatever, but not go to the school anymore. I was thinking to run away from home. And I ran away when I was 13 for a week. And then my father was sick very seriously. He was paralyzed. I know I couldn't, to against him anymore. So I tried to take the examinations to go to university, but I was failed. And because I couldn't really study at school. When I was in countryside, my grandparents, they sent me to school in the village. We didn't really have books. And I need to take my younger sister. She was like 3-4 years only to the school because no one taking care of her. So like she was standing beside me and she doesn't have anything to sit down, but we people, like students, sit on the benches, not chairs. We didn't have chair. And she will normally to speak to me, sister, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher will use a piece of from the tray to shut up. So I didn't really learn anything when I was in the village. When I came back to Beijing, my mom wanted me to finish my school early as I can. So she put me 2 semesters ahead. So I finished 2 years in the village. Then I started my new year as grade 4 in Beijing. So I missed 2 semesters. And at my grade 5th, that the Chinese school has a very dramatic change. They cut it off the grade 6. So it was only 5 grades at elementary school. And then we started our middle school. And in the middle school, we couldn't really study something because we need to go to the factory. It's called like a learn from the workers 1 month each semesters. And we need to go to the countryside, the villages, called to learn from the peasants 1 month. So it doesn't really have much time in school. And also, when we were in school, my teacher, she found me as what she said about me is her family background has serious problems. Her family background has serious political problems, and herself has the thoughts of against our party. So which means that I am enemy to the community. Then it was so-called the openness of and the reform in China. But I didn't really believe it. So now people knew that I was right. I worked 5 jobs in China, and I learned a lot from my experience. And also I worked the last job at a publication company. It's called Management World magazine house. And it was a focus on the development of China's, so especially the economic change. So I learned very soon that the economic reform was a lie, a big lie, because the Chinese communists, they knew what is a good political system in the world, because they started to send a lot of people overseas and themselves as well too. And they knew China need to change its own political system to, in case, to step in the modern world. But they refused to make any political change, but only to loosen the economic controls, because they knew that China was very backwards, and they call it economics was going to collapse. So they loosened the control of people to work, but not to think and not to enjoy anything like freedom or human rights or democracy, nothing of them. So when I was working at the magazine house, we met some cases like people who are the heads of factories, and they work very hard to make profits, but then they were being so those kind of cases give me the lesson that the government, they still controls everything. They don't want people to gain rights, to earn rights, but only work for them and to make the profits for them. So I talked about this very early. When I was writing a book in 2001, I wrote about this. I said that the so-called reform and openness was a lie of the Chinese communists, because they knew the world has much better political system that they can just import to China, but they refused to do so. And they said, oh, that way to cross the river and to search for stones, which is very, very ridiculous. And now Chinese people all are still in the very cold, deep river. But the families of the Chinese communist central power, they sent their children, their family members, and also their wealth to democratic countries. And they put the Chinese people in the water, in the river, until today. I have a lot of relatives in United States. My second uncle, third uncle, second auntie, third auntie, their whole families, and my brothers. I wanted to go to United States at the beginning. And I was failed of my application of visa. A friend introduced me a school, Calton University. And so I applied for journalism, and also applied for English before my major. I sent in my application to the Canadian Embassy in Beijing in May of 1989. And why I wanted to go abroad, because especially when I was working at the publication house, the magazines house, I have other two good friends, very close friends. We often to discuss about social issues in China together, and we had the same idea of the so-called reform and openness in China, and we think it was eventually will go to the end of it, because without a political change, there won't be a real free market in China. So there won't be a real development and reform of the economic field too. So we wanted to go abroad to study of the, we said, we wanted to find the solution for China to change its political system. So we three came out one by one. Both of them, they went to United States. And the first friend who went to United States in 1986, he died there. he never had a chance to go back to China. And the other friend who finished his sociologist, he had his master's degree and he decided to go back to China. And he tried very hard in China. I know that he had a bookstore and he had a lot of seminars and he tried to write what he thought. And he tried many ways to give his experience since he was in the United States for several years, but he failed. He failed and he had a stroke last year. So he cannot do anything now. And so I am still fighting for human rights and democracy for China now in Canada. And I obtained my student visa after the Tiananmen massacre. It was in July of 1989. So I got my visa and I came to Canada in August. I never be able to go back to my hometown to visit my families and my relatives in Beijing, because I tried in 1996. I landed in the capital airport in Beijing, and I was arrested. After 24 hours, interrogated by the Chinese authority, that I was deported back to Canada the following day. And I was caught once in Hong Kong too. I went to Hong Kong August 6th of 2008, and they caught me and put me into the prison in airport. And the following morning, because of our Canadian Foreign Affairs intervened, and they released me. Not released, they sent me back to Taiwan because I went to Hong Kong via Taiwan. I believe that Chinese people cannot enjoy freedom, human rights, democracy, rule of law because of the Chinese tyranny, is the communist regime. So I tried to change that. And since I am in Toronto for about 20 days, because I arrived here August 20th of 1989. And about 20 some days, it was the 100 days commemoration of the Tiananmen massacre. I went to the Chinese consulate in Toronto and to participate in the commemoration event, the gathering. Since that day, I have been very, very, very busy until now. And I tried every way that I could think of. Like I hold hundreds of events, demonstrations, gatherings, meetings, seminars, and talks, a lot of this kind of educational and also social event to let Canadian community to know what is happening in China. And also I am a writer. I wrote a lot of things, and I'm a poet. I have poetry book, and I have 2 poetry awards. And also I was in universities in Calton, McMaster, and Alberta universities, and to be the writer in residence, and to talk to students about the reality in China. And I tried to reach out to other ethnic communities like Tibetans, Uyghurs, Mongolian, and also other communities like Taiwanese, Hong Konger in China, and Korean, Vietnamese, and Eastern European communities as well too, because I always believe in solidarity, especially for people who are being persecuted. We need to unite together to fight back to the tyranny. Otherwise, there won't be any chance for us to win. So I tried very hard. And I have very lucky. I mean, I was being very lucky because since I support Tibetans for almost 30 years, I had a chance to be received and to meet with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, for more than 10 times. When I came to Canada, I was so emotionally happy, especially for people like myself, experienced the persecution and also a survivor from the Tiananmen massacre. So when I landed in Pearson Airport, it was like a dream. It was something, people cannot imagine that it's like a reborn life. And so I put myself into the overseas Chinese democracy movement very soon, like 20 days after. But then I realized the Chinese communist power, they are here too. Their people, their influence, their money, their network, everything, they are here. They are here before me. And so I not only need to fight against to the Chinese regime in China, but also need to fight in the front line here with them many times. At the beginning, I didn't really understand that I need to report this to the Canadian government or to report to RCMP or CISIS, because for people like myself, grown up in China, we didn't really have this kind of knowledge. And because in China, who you can report to, right? At the first years that I didn't know that I should report this kind of experience to our government, our Canadian government, or some department here, until very late. They sent blackmails to me and they harassed me and they me. Even the first year of Tiananmen massacre, of course, I was very busy with the commemoration event, and people, they listed my phone number, my home phone number, and my photo, put my photo into the mail's public washroom. And so I received phone calls, they said I was a prostitute and provide sex service. I was so scared, but I didn't know that I could report this. Then this happens more and more and more and more. And when I was writing the book about unveiling the Yuanhua case, that was a big case in China because Chinese government appointed that was the biggest smuggling case since 1949. And the guy, the figure who was in Canada, I interviewed him about 100 hours and interviewed more than 30 people. And I wanted to unveiling the truth of the case and also to tell the lie of the government. I received a lot of pressures, and also the Chinese government, they took my husband, sister, and brother, and to give me the pressure, asked me to stop. And also I received phone call. For example, one phone call was in the afternoon, and the guy said, "What do you want?" I said, "What do I want? What do you want?" He said, "How about $1 million US?" And I said, "For what?" And he said, "I want to buy your book." He said, "I want to buy the copyright for your book, never to be published." I said, "I'm sorry." I investigated this case. I wrote the book. It's for publication. And he just said the very dirty words, and hung up. I was so scared for the past about 9 years. Yeah, about 9 years. I was elected as the president of the Federation for a Democratic China. The organization was established right after the Tiananmen Square massacre in Paris and extended to many countries, have the branches. And I was elected as the president of Federation for a Democratic China. And soon after that, people who work for the Chinese regime, they set a trap for me to ask me to go to Thailand. And I found out that later. At that time, I didn't know. But my mom was sick. My mom was paralyzed. So I didn't really want to go to so far. And I didn't want to go that far. And the conference that I planned to attend, which was in Turkey for Uyghurs, was canceled under the pressure of the Chinese government. So I decided not to go. And the person then asked me, why don't you go? I said, because of these reasons. And then he said, okay, we can turn over this page. About 10 some days after it was started, very overwhelming online attack to me. I think it's over 10,000 posts and over 10,000 group emails and a lot of accusations, like hundreds of accusations, like a lot of lies. And you cannot reply, you cannot explain, because you don't even have the chance to explain that. So I decided to wait. I know what was happening, so I decided to wait. Then there are a lot of fake photos of me. Yeah, there are a lot of nude photos of me and erotic photos of me online. And there are a group of people to send this crazily online on Twitter, Facebook, and emails, and put online. And then they published my home land phone, my web phone, and my cell phone license in North America, across Canada, and some cities in the United States. And I should receive hundreds of phones and asking me to provide sex service. I went to the police station in Mississauga at Eastgate. And they said they cannot do nothing about this because I am an adult. If I am a child, they could do something. So they asked me to change my phones. I said, it's not my case. And they said, or if you know who is doing this, you can sue them. I said, of course, I don't know. And then someone started to demonstrate to me in front of our parliament here. And he said that I am a Chinese spy, China spy. And he was standing in front of our parliament hill from November 19th of 2015 until April of 2016. 5 months through the winter, and from Monday to Saturday, like a regular job. And he also put a lot of posts, a lot of my photos onto the light poles around the parliament. And he delivers flyers to our MPs and saying that I work for the Chinese regime. And I didn't know what I could do. I went to the police station and I was told, this is a freedom of expression. They cannot do nothing. I'm still very active until now. And also, I receive a lot of respect from people. For example, last year I had surgery. I was in hospital that I received flowers like every day, more than a month. I was so touched, especially for someone like me fighting against to the Chinese tyranny that people normally will keep in distance because they don't want to get in trouble. But I know that for my 33 years activities, that I earn people's trust and respect. And as a journalist, that I own some awards, major awards in Canada. I won 3 media awards. And as a poet, that my poetry being liked by readers very much. And I was awarded 2 prizes. And also I was awarded Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Award the year 2012. Also, I was chosen as the Canada Story person in 2016 by Maclean's. So I have been very lucky. I always think that I am lucky because I know that many people, they fight against to the tyranny. They never have chance to speak out again. They will never have chance to, still enjoy the freedom and human rights and democracy. Also, the respect as me. So I should try more. I should work harder.